As a central bank, we are asked to maintain price stability and financial sector stability. So that is top priority. So we are back to, I would say, normal inflation rates. But of course, the prices that had gone up in 2022 and 2023, where we had double-digit inflation, are high. When you're the first woman to lead an institution, it's always pointed out. But I would think, yes, it's an honor, it's a privilege, but it's also a result of policies that our country has taken.
What are you going to prioritize as the new central bank governor, considering the country's economic performance currently, and even the financial sector in general? Well, what are your top priorities in your tenure as the new central bank governor?
So first thing is that there's a continuity. As a central bank, we are asked to maintain price stability and financial sector stability. So that is top priority, because from price stability and financial stability, then that's when we start, talking about economic growth. You cannot grow an economy if you don't have macroeconomic stability. So that, of course, is always a top priority for the central bank. But we've enlarged our mission to also include promoting sustainable and inclusive growth. I've always had also a passion on financial inclusion. How do we make sure that as we develop our financial sector, all Rwandans can benefit from financial services? And it goes beyond, we've made a lot of progress in terms of people having access to bank accounts, mobile money accounts, what we call access to, I think, basic financial services. But I think as a country, we need to grow further. How do we build financial resilience for our population so that you not only have an account, but you're able to save, able to invest, and plan long term? So as we were mentioning about Vision 2050, where our country should be, is really to start having a population of citizens that look at wealth creation, create wealth for our children, our grandchildren. So I look into financial stability, but looking at how do we make sure that those financial services are accessible and affordable to everyone. Last thing that we have started working on, even in my previous position as deputy governor, was the digital transformation of the central bank. You know that technology plays a great role now in finance. More services are digital. And it so happens that we just had a 3-day inclusive fintech forum. So financial technology, making sure that we put in place a conducive environment for fintechs in Rwanda to flourish, but also to attract investment in that sector. That's also a priority. And lastly, but not certainly last, but certainly not the least, we know that we've started the Kigali International Financial Center. So I think my priority is to contribute to the growth of our international financial center, having more players coming into our country in different areas, making sure that central bank contributes meaningfully to the growth of our capital markets and stock market as well, because that's really the foundation of our real international financial center. And I know that we've already done some work and building on what the outgoing Governor John Rwangombwa has put in place. I'm pretty sure that we'll also succeed in the next 5 to 6 years.
Do you plan to implement or devise strategies to protect the value of the franc and the purchasing power of Rwandans? And how do you plan to do that?
So as I mentioned, really our priority mandate or top mandate is price stability. It's true that the last few years have been challenging, not only for Rwanda, but globally, with high rates of inflation, especially in 2022, 2023. But when you look at how we've managed to contain inflation last year, where we had an annual rate of 4.2%, which is really in our range where we look at really what we're targeting is an inflation around 5%, meaning between 2% and 8%. So we are back to, I would say, normal inflation rates. But of course, the prices that had gone up in 2022 and 2023, where we had double-digit inflation, are high, and I do understand. But working with other stakeholders, but also using our monetary policy tools, we're seeing that for 2025 and 2026 will be around that 6.5% forecasted for 2025 as inflation, 4.6, if I'm not mistaken, for 2026. So on inflation, we're not that worried, although we know there are a lot of, as we explained in our monetary policy conference, press conference after the Monetary Policy Committee take its decision. We see also a lot of risk to that outlook, but we continue to monitor and make sure that we can take appropriate measures and keep really inflation around that 5%. That's our target. On depreciation, yes, we've had pressures on the exchange rate, but we know also the reason behind. We've had a structural trade deficit, meaning that we export less than we import, but that is to be somewhat expected in a country that's developing fast. There's a lot of inputs that we need for our development, especially in the manufacturing side, machinery, some raw material. But there's been, on the government side, initiatives and strategies to make sure that we can increase our export with a new export strategy, industrial policy for Rwanda. So we're working really with all key stakeholders to make sure that we can bring narrow that trade deficit, which then would stabilize our currency. But we also, as you know, promoting more investment in the country. That will also help. So the pressures that we have had on our currency in 2023, where our depreciation reached 18%, last year was down to 9%, so we've reduced it by half. I'm not saying it's good news, but it's good trend. So we're seeing that in the medium term, we should go back to levels we used to have of around a depreciation of 5%, which we consider healthy for the economy that we have today.
If you look at you being the first woman to be the governor of National Bank of Rwanda as the central bank of the country, how do you feel about that? And what does it mean to you and in general to women in general?
I think, of course, when you're the first woman to lead an institution, it's always pointed out. But I would think, yes, it's an honor, it's a privilege, but it's also a result of policies that our country has taken and the deliberate efforts to make sure that men and women in Rwanda have the same opportunities. I do not think if that had not been the case, probably I would not be having this position. The fact that we know that as Rwandan girls, probably at the time 30 years ago when we had, after the genocide against the Tutsi, the new government of unity, and really a deliberate effort by our leadership to make sure that women are included in all sectors of life in Rwanda. That's opened doors to all of us women in Rwanda to be able to aspire to any role that we would have. And I also know that it's a result of many other women that have worked in different sectors, but mostly in the central bank, and proved that they were capable of doing the job. If they had not done so, maybe people would still be skeptical about the fact that a woman is able to not only be a central banker, but probably lead a central bank. I'm very grateful for that opportunity, but also expectations to make sure that I continue to perform. And I'm sure I will not be the last woman central banker. So it gives me great pleasure, sort of gratitude for that opportunity. gratitude to those who came before me. You know that before that we've had 2 female deputy governors before, so they paved the way. And I'm hoping that I'm also paving the way for many, many more women that will lead not only the central bank in Rwanda, but also other institutions, especially in finance.
Thank you so much for such information.
You're most welcome, and thank you for having me.